Question number 1. Which one of the following is the determinant of aggregate demand? A. Availability of credit. B. Cost of inputs. C. State of technology. D. Change in productivity. Students, what will be your answer? Excellent. Here, cost of inputs affects firm's production cost. It affects aggregate supply, not affecting demand. Again, state of technology is not the answer because technology improves productivity and shifts the aggregate supply, not affecting demand. D is not the answer because productivity affects output capacity, which is a supply side factor. A. The availability of credit is a determinant of aggregate demand. Why? Because aggregate demand is a total spending in the economy. As a result, when credit is easily available, households can borrow more to consume. Firms can borrow again more to invest. This helps to increase total spending. A is the correct answer. Question number 2. What is the effect of an exogenous increase in government spending? This is exogenous. A. Aggregate demand shifts to the right, increasing both output and the price level. B. Aggregate demand shifts to the left, increasing both output and the price level. C. Aggregate demand shifts to the left, decreasing output and increasing price level. D. Aggregate demand shifts to the right, increasing output but decreasing price level. Which one is the correct? Here, aggregate demand shifts to the left, increasing both output and the price level, as well as the aggregate demand shifts to the left, decreasing output and increasing price level are government spending. Not the answer, because government spending does not reduce aggregate demand, while aggregate demand shifts to the right, increasing output, but decreasing price level, it says. D is also not the answer, because when demand rises, price also rises, not decreases. So, A, aggregate demand shifts to the right, increasing both output and the price level, when the exogenous increase in government spending. Okay, government spending is a component of aggregate demand. When government spending increases, total demand rises. In the short run, higher demand leads to higher output and higher price levels. So, again, the answer for question number 2 is A. Question number 3. Which one of the following is correct about factors affecting aggregate supply? A. Higher price of imported raw materials leads firms to produce more. B. Lower demand for commodities in the market initiates firms to produce more. C. Subsidizing domestic industry in technology leads to decreased production. D. Qualified higher managerial ability leads firms to produce more production. Students, don't forget to subscribe to Webby17 official tube and share, like this video. Good. A is not the answer because higher raw material prices increase costs and reduce supplies. But A says that higher price of imported raw materials leads firms to produce more. It says no. B is also not the answer because demand affects aggregate demand, not aggregate supply. C is also not the answer because technology subsidizes improved production, not reducing the production. So subsidizing domestic industry in technology leads to increased production. Okay, so the answer is D. The qualified high managerial ability leads firms to produce more production. How? The better management improves efficiency, organization, and productivity. This allowing firms to produce more output at every price level. So, this increases aggregate supply. As a result, D is the correct answer. Question number 4. Among the following statements, which one is correct about the short-run aggregate supply curve? A. It shows the quantity demanded at different price levels, ceteris paribus. B. It reveals that as price level rises, firms decreases the quantity supplied of goods. C. It shows the quantity supplied of output at various price levels, ceteris paribus. D. It reveals that as price level drops, firms increase the quantity supplied of goods. Which one is the correct answer? A describes aggregate demand, not aggregate supply. So it is not the answer. B says that reveals as a price level rises, firms decreases the quantity supplied of goods. It says no. Higher prices encourage more supply, not less. Revealing that as a price level drops, firms increases the quantity supplied of goods is not the answer. C is the correct answer. Why? The short-run aggregate supply curve shows how much output firms are willing to supply at different price levels in the short run. This assuming wages and other costs are fixed. Question number 5. Which one of the following is true about short-run equilibrium in the economy? A. The occurrence of a shortage of goods leads firms to decrease output and consumption decreases. B. It is the intersection of aggregate demand and aggregate supply. C. The occurrence of a surplus of goods leads firms to decrease output and consumption increases. D. It is the intersection of long-run and short-run aggregate supply curve. Which one is true about short-run equilibrium in economy? A is not the answer because shortage of goods leads the firms to increase output, not to decrease. C is also not the answer because surplus reduces output but does not increase the consumption. And also D is not the answer because the intersection of long-run and short-run aggregate supply curve defines long-run equilibrium rather than short-run equilibrium. So is not the answer. As a result, the correct answer is B. Short-run equilibrium in the economy is the intersection of aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Here, short-run equilibrium occurs where aggregate demand equals aggregate supply. At this point, there is no pressure for output or prices to change. So B is the correct answer. Question number 6. Suppose the price level changed from the equilibrium of aggregate demand and short-run aggregate supply in an economy. Which of the following is true about the results? A. At a lower price level, there will be surplus and the price level decreases. B. At a higher price level, there will be shortage and the price level increases. C. At a lower price level, there will be shortage and the price level rises. D. At a higher price level, there will be surplus and price level increases. This is all from 2017 entrance exam. Don't forget to subscribe Wabi 17 official tube and share, like, comment this video. Okay. Lower prices create shortage, not surplus. But A says that at a lower price level, there will be surplus. It says no. So A is not the answer. At higher prices, surpluses becomes created, not shortages. So B is not the answer again. Surplus causes prices to fall, not to rise. So D is again not the answer. As a result, C is the correct answer. At the lower price level, there will be shortage and the price level rises. Here, at a price below the equilibrium, quantity demanded is greater than quantity supplied. This shortage pushes prices upward until equilibrium is restored. So, C is the correct answer. Question number 7. Which one of the following statements correctly describes market failure? A. The individual incentives for rational behavior leads to rational outcomes for the group. B. The price mechanism accounts for all the costs and benefits to provide and consume a good. B. The steady state equilibrium in which quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. D. The inefficient distribution of goods and services in the free market. Distractor A. Individual incentives for rational behavior leads to rational outcome for group describes the efficient markets, not failurity. While B. The price mechanism accounts for all the costs and benefits to provide and consume a good assumes no externalities. While C describes equilibrium, not failure. The steady state equilibrium in which quantity supplied equals quantity demanded is about equilibrium, not about the market failure. So D is the correct answer. Here, market failure occurs when free markets do not allocate resources efficiently, often due to externalities, public goods, or information problems. So, the inefficient distribution of goods and services in a free market is the market failure. D is the correct answer. Question number 8. Which one of the following is a solution for the market failure caused by firms that pollutes a river? A. Taxing the polluting firm. B. Subsidizing the polluting firm. C. Encouraging the polluting firm. D. Renting the polluted river. Which one is a solution for the market failure that caused by firms that pollutes a river? Encouraging pollution is not the solution, and as well as encouraging the polluting firm makes pollution worse. So C is also not the answer. D does not state well about the solution, how to solve market failure caused by firms that pollutes a river. As a result, A is the correct answer. Taxing the polluting firm. Here, pollution creates negative externalities. Taxes force polluters to pay for social costs and reducing pollution. So, A is the correct answer. Question number 9. Which one of the following explains the free rider problem in an economy? A. Free ridership arises due to the excludable nature of public goods. B. Individuals get the benefits of public goods without contributing to the cost. C. All individuals have the incentive to pay for the public goods. D. The free rider problem enables market to operate efficiently for public goods, which one explains the free rider problem in an economy. Public goods are non-excludable. So, free ridership arises due to the excludable nature of public goods is not the answer. Again, all individuals have the incentive to pay for the public goods, it says C. Individuals prefer not to pay. So C is not the answer again. Free riding reduces efficiency as a result. The free rider problem enables market to operate the free rider problem enables market to operate efficiently for public good is not the answer. As a result, the correct answer is individuals get the benefits of public goods without contributing to the cost. B. The free rider problem occurs when people enjoy public goods without paying, this leading to under provision. So B is the correct answer. Question number 10. Among the following alternatives, which one represents positive externality? A. Playing loud music in the neighborhood. B. Smoking in public places. C. Vaccination program in the neighborhood. D. Overgrazing cows in common pasture lands. Here, playing loud music in neighborhoods and smoking in public places creates harm to others. So it is negative externalities, not positive. While overgrazing cows in common pasture lands causes environmental damage, not represent positive externalities. So vaccination program is a positive externalities, which means vaccination benefits society by reducing diseases spread, not just the vaccinated individual. So C is the correct answer. Question number 11. Asymmetric information is a situation when A. Buyers and sellers have different types of information. B. Buyers and sellers have the same type of information. C. Buyers and sellers want to be free riders. D. Buyers and sellers lack agreement on the price. Asymmetric information is a situation when buyers and sellers have the same type of information is symmetric information, not asymmetric. So B is not the answer. Free riding is unrelated. Free riding occurs when an individual enjoys the benefit of goods or services without paying for it, especially in the case of public goods like street lighting, national defense, or clean air. So C is not the answer. D. Pricing disagreement is also the different sentence. A is the correct answer. Buyers and sellers have different types of information. This is asymmetric information. So, asymmetric information exists when one party in a transaction has more information than the other, this leading to inefficiency. So, A is the correct answer. Question number 12. When an individual builds skills by acquiring more education or training, the individual is trying to A. Free ride the employer. B. Screen the employer. C. Create externality for the employer. D. Signal to the employer. Free ride the employer is not involved. So A is not the answer. Employers screen workers, not screen the employer. B is not the answer. Another, education mainly benefits the individual, not for the employer. So signal to the employer is when an individual builds skills by acquiring more education or training, the individual is trying to signal to the employer. Education signals ability, skills, and productivity to employers, reducing information problem. So D is the correct answer. Question number 13. Why is consumer protection necessary? A. Consumers often do not exercise their rights. B. Sellers compete aggressively with each other. C. Consumers' interests and business survival are unrelated. D. Consumers have the same information as sellers. Competition reduces needs for protection. So, sellers compete aggressively with each other is not the answer. While consumers' interests and business survival are unrelated sentence. And also, consumers have the same information as sellers is wrong. Consumers usually have less information than sellers. So, consumers often lack information and bargaining power, making protection necessary. A is the correct answer. Question number 14. Which one of the following is among the general objectives of macroeconomic policy? A. Cost minimization. B. Income inequality. C. Healthy balance of payments. D. Profit maximization. Cost minimization and profit maximization are firm level goals, not macroeconomic policies goals. Inequality is a problem, so B is not the answer, while C is the correct answer. Here, macroeconomic policy aims for economic stability, growth, price stability, and balance of payments. As I have said, C is the correct answer. Question number 15. Among the following alternatives, which one is a monetary policy tool? A. Taxation. B. Discount rates. C. Transfer payments. D. Grants in aid. Taxation, transfer payments, and grants in aid are fiscal policy tools, not monetary policy tools. So, discount rate is a monetary policy tools. Okay, fiscal policy refers to the government's use of taxation and public expenditure to influence the level of economic activity. The main tools of fiscal policy are government spendings, like on education, health, and infrastructure, while taxation includes income tax, VAT, and corporate tax. So, B is the correct answer. The central bank uses the discount rate to control money supply and credit conditions. B is the correct answer. Question number 16. Which one of the following is not a financial sector reform component of the homegrown economic reforms? A. Reduce the supply of credit to the private sector. B. Promote market-based interest rates. C. Strengthen the capacity of the National Bank of Ethiopia. D. Establish and expand capital markets. Which one is not the financial sector reform component of homegrown economic reform? Promoting market-based interest rates, strengthening the capacity of National Bank of Ethiopia, and establishing and expanding capital markets are the key reform measures. But reducing the supply of credit to the private sector is not a financial sector reform component of the homegrown economic reforms. Why? Because reforms aim to expand private sector credits, not reducing the private sector credits. A is the correct answer. Question number 17. Which one of the following is an advantage of fiscal decentralization? A. Local externalities. C. Ineffectiveness of redistributing programs. B. Inefficient tax system. D. Fostering intergovernmental competition. Which is an advantage of fiscal decentralization? Local externalities is a challenge, not an advantage, so is not the answer. Inefficient tax system and ineffectiveness of redistributing program are the weakness of decentralization, not the advantage. So D, fostering intergovernmental competition is an advantage of fiscal decentralization. Why? Because competition among governments improves efficiency, accountability, and service delivery. So, D is the correct answer for question number 17. Students, thank you for watching my video from the beginning up to the end. Goodbye, students. Goodbye.